How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another Remnant 2 video. The Awakened King DLC came with quite a few weapons, and I've gotten a few messages asking me what is my opinion on which is the best or which weapons to use. So today I'm gonna just break them all down in a tier list format. Maybe it helps you guys with a decision on what weapons to get next, or even maybe you didn't know they existed and you can kind of figure it out now in this video. Either way, let's get this one started. Before we begin though, I do want to set a few parameters on my decision making when it comes to these weapons. We're going to base it off of ease of use or use case. We're going to base it off of how easy it is to obtain the weapon, how good it works for the core design of the weapon. I don't want to put too many conditions on it, but I do want to give a little bit of maybe some type of condition so it'd be easier to understand my mindset on these weapons. But all that out of the way, let's begin. So starting this thing off, we're going to be starting with the Sparkfire Shotgun. And the Sparkfire Shotgun is a lone gun that has a 7-round magazine. It's a shotgun and it has incendiary shells that burn enemies. It comes with a open mod slot as well as an open mutator slot, and it's a fairly easy one to get. It does require you to go to the derelict lighthouse specifically, so you can somewhat target farm this weapon, which is a massive positive. It can be a little easy to miss if you don't know the mechanic, but most of us probably are going to look it up and figure it out. So a fairly easy weapon for the most part, very deterministic spawn. In terms of overall usage, the shotgun itself is not insanely good in my opinion compared to other weapons, but for what it is designed for, which is being a weapon for the Ritualist and being able to apply multiple statuses, I think it does a phenomenal job at it. Overall, I would personally put this weapon in the A tier because one, it is very easy to use, it's very easy to get because it's a deterministic spawn. It is very good for what it's designed for, which is basically to be a debuff weapon for the Ritualist class. And ultimately, it's just a really cool weapon with the fire coming out of it. When I say A tier, I think it may be closer to a lower A tier weapon. I'll probably use it over probably a good portion of the weapons, but definitely not the high tier weapons for sure. While we're on the subject of shotguns, we're going to be talking about the Anguish shotgun. It's like a hand shotgun, and it has a mod called Loathe the Weak, and it basically just transformed it to a SMG style weapon that does AoE damage, but in a small area. So this weapon is a interesting weapon because the core design of it is to be balanced around everything but not good at anything in particular. Now it does come with a magazine reload rather than a single shell reload like the Sparkfire Shotgun, so that is a minor positive comparatively, but it does have less rounds and the damage isn't necessarily the greatest, and its use case in terms of its mod isn't necessarily the greatest either. You can't swap that out, so it's not the best. Most importantly, the thing that really puts this weapon or sets this weapon apart from every other weapon is how difficult it is to get. I think it is one of the top 5 most difficult weapons to achieve getting. If I'm being honest, the quest to get it is very convoluted and very I don't know, unnecessarily RNG. And considering how very mid it is of a weapon, it does feel like it's real. Ultimately, I'm probably gonna put this one in the D tier or something. Maybe someone can surprise me with a build, but I don't really see the benefit of using Anguish. Next, we have the Monarch Lone Gun, and the Monarch Lone Gun is a lone gun that has a 6-round magazine, and it drops specifically from the One True King whenever he's standing. So it's a fairly easy weapon to get. You just gotta kill the One True King with your actual weapon yourself. It comes with a mod slot that has Chain of Command in it, and you just fire a harpoon on it. It reduces the damage that you deal by 15%, but it does homing. You'll build this stat called Influence, and basically as you continue to hit things, you'll do a shockwave thing. You'll do increased damage, which will make up for the damage that you lose, and you get 5%. And then you have infinite reserves, and it lasts for a good amount of time. So if you have a build specifically to maybe having really good rate of fire, this could be really good. Maybe even good mod generation, it could be good. And of course the rounds hone on to the enemy, so you don't necessarily have to aim, which is kind of nice. My thoughts on the weapon is it's definitely a really solid weapon if you have a build around it. I definitely can see you making a build around it, and I definitely see the use case of the weapon. I'm not saying it's going to outperform any super high S tier weapons, because there's quite a few in the game that just outshines a lot. But the Monarch is unique, which is really cool. It's very easy to get. It does relatively good damage if you know how to build it. And I mean, the benefits on the mod is actually really solid if you can build around it really well. To me, I'm putting this in like high A tier, possibly low S tier. So to me, an A tier weapon, not S tier, but definitely a really solid weapon. Probably one of the better ones that came with the DLC. That is it for all the long guns. Let's move on to the melee weapon. So starting this thing off with the Steel Scythe, this can be purchased from Barbas, and it has a base 10% crit chance, and it is a scythe weapon. Now, I will be honest with you guys, I am a little bit newer to Remnant 2 compared to maybe some of the other creators on the platform. I play a lot of Remnant from the Ashes, but I didn't play a lot of Remnant 2. What I don't quite understand with weapons like these is what is the purpose of me using a, let's say, Steel Scythe, for example, when I can use another weapon that has a mod slot. Maybe someone down in the comments can give me a reason why I would use something that doesn't have a mod slot with like no benefits. Outside of just maybe, I noticed they tend to have decent crit chance, but I'm not sure why I would ever use that weapon over anything else. I'm going to give it a D tier because I don't want to dwell on this weapon. It's just so abnormally mid, and I don't really get the no slot thing, so pretty mid weapon. Don't think it's worth anything. Next we have the Abyssal Hook melee weapon. This is a hammer style weapon that comes with a mod called Fathomless Deep. What it does is whenever you use a charged melee hit, it grants Fathomless Deep, which increases melee stagger by 10% for 5 seconds with a max stack of 3 up to 30% stagger basically. I haven't really played around with stagger too much. I've used the weapon a little bit just to see how it performed. It's a pretty decent stagger weapon, but I think most players probably won't find this weapon to be useful, mainly because it's just kind of a niche style weapon. It is a fairly easy weapon to get. You can get it in the drown win area, but overall it's not really anything to lose sleep over. It's a stagger based weapon, it's very niche. I think I'll probably put it in like the C tier because just how average it is. But yeah, you can maybe make a build around it, but I don't really think anyone is going to use this over some of the better weapons in the game. Next we have the Ritualist Scythe, and this one can be gotten from the Forgotten Commune. And it's a interesting weapon. It is designed specifically for the Ritualist. It has a mod called Reaver on it, and it increases melee damage by 10% if the target is suffering from a negative status effect. Like if we compare it to other weapons with other mods, like I'm sure 10% damage can go a long way, but we're talking about other weapons that can easily do 10% increased damage and a little bit more. For example, the Stonebreaker is one of my favorite weapons. I know it's not like the highest of tier weapons, but like the melee charge on that thing does fairly good damage. You can shotgun enemies with the increased damage from the shockwave, so you know I can in its range. So it's really nice, whereas this weapon is more of a, you kind of do more damage whenever you have a condition on it. Not necessarily my favorite style of weapon. I think it's pretty mediocre. I would probably put it also in the C tier as a melee weapon. But let me know what you guys think. I haven't really used it too much because again, it just doesn't feel that good. Finally, we have the Wrathbringer melee weapon, and this one is a two-hand like hammer weapon that comes from killing the one true king. I believe it's whenever he kneel and you kill him, or whenever he kneels and the like enemies on the little hammer attacks and kill him. I'm not 100% sure. It's one of the two will trigger you getting the drop, but again, you have to kill the one true king. And what this does is it comes with a mod called Awakening, and whenever you take any incoming damage, you get Awakening, and it will increase your melee damage by 5% for 10 seconds with a max stack of 10 stacks, which means it can get up to 50% increased damage as long as you're getting hit. So if you're looking on screen now, I have the Anguish equipped, and you can do things like using the Atonement Fold Ring, for example, to trigger this effect and permanently have that 50% increased damage. So that's really cool. Overall, I actually think it's a fairly solid weapon. The reason for it is because you actually can build really well around this weapon. As I just showed you a second ago, the Atonement Fold Ring can kind of self-proc it if you use it, which has a 10% crit on the ring. And then you have 50% increased damage, which could be a really solid synergy. And then there are a lot of things that actually, like in the game, require you to be hit to get a benefit from it. And if you're playing like a bruiser style class like I do, I love playing bruiser style, this is actually a fairly solid damaging weapon. Personally, I would put this in the lower B tier of weapons, if I'm being honest, because again, it doesn't have a lot of use cases. It is fairly easy to get. It can be target farmed. It does have good damage, which is kind of nice. And the condition isn't that unreasonable to meet. It's just essentially just playing the game. So I think it's a very solid weapon. but it's nothing you're going to pick like over some of the better weapons in the game basically. And there you have it. That is all the weapons in the Awakened King DLC. I find a lot of the weapons to be fairly unique and interesting. Some are a little bit convoluted in their design like Anguish, and some of them are more specific to styles like the Sparkfire Shotgun and the Wrathbringer. But I mean, it was a really solid DLC that brings a lot of cool weapons, and I think you could use a lot of them for builds. With that said, let me know what you think down in the comments, if this list is something you would agree with, or how you would change this list. Maybe even give me some synergies you think would be better, or something I may have overlooked. With that said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next Remnant 2 video very soon. Later.